my brother got in trouble in the first place was hanging around Tommy, So, and by the way, Stacks, for me too, the reason they wanted to give me 20 years and not 4 years is because of Tommy, right? They knew Tommy was involved, and that's how the feds carry it, man. They're always investigating those OC guys.
An all-new and major organized crime bust. 23 people under arrest now accused of stealing guns and cash.
Today, police revealed 4 organized crime groups are wreaking havoc.
From aggravated robbery to kidnapping, burglary, and more. Let's take a look at this. New pictures from court documents in this case. These are a few of the people who have been charged, and investigators say the money, tens of thousands of dollars, is all stolen.
FBI, open up! Welcome to this episode of Chatting with Stacks. I'm your host, Bill Stacks, and today I got Derek Galanis. What's up, man?
What's up, Bill? How are you, brother? Been a while.
I'm doing great. Things are really good, man. Moving along.
Good.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to come on here. You gave me the best advice that any host has given me. You said, Derek, ignore the haters and tell your story and don't worry about it. But, Stacks, that's not my personality. I'm a fighter, man. So I'm constantly at loggerheads with these guys, being angry at them and whatnot. And something really big happened. I shared a little bit with you the last couple of weeks. My brother finally went before Congress to testify, the Oversight Committee. So, it was a 9-hour day. They asked him questions, whatnot, back and forth about Hunter Biden. And it makes me smile, man. All these guys on here, no, Derek's a phony, Derek's a fraud. Oh, really? Have any of your guys been before Congress? Not since the commission case, maybe, or whatever those hearings they had. But yeah, man, I was really happy that it happened. I think it proved a lot of the haters wrong, and that's what I'm here to talk about.
Did he mention your name during that testimony?
It's funny you say that, man. So there was only one part about me, and that was in the closed door. So they did 2 with my brother. So they sent some staffers down to his prison. He's in Mississippi. I believe that's the prison camp he's in. And they interviewed him to check out, his viability. Now, one thing about my brother, remember, he's one of the best con men alive. So, of course he comes off as viable, right? They loved him, his story and how he told it and everything else. And at one point they asked him, they said, so your brother's name is Derek? He goes, yes. He goes, and he published a book, Greed and Fear of the Galanis Crime Family. Is that right? And my brother said to him, I think so. I don't know. And fair enough, my brother's in prison. And then they said, this is the name of the book. Can you confirm that? And he said, I have no idea. Now, let me tell you something, Stacks. My brother knows the name of my book. I know because I gave him a couple copies in prison just to mess with him.
So what's your brother in prison for? How long has he been there? And how long does he have?
So at the end of the day, my brother got about a 16-year sentence. The feds, they do it in months. So it's something like 188 or something like that. I didn't do the exact math. It's kind of funny because in the news, they're talking about how it's a 14-year sentence. But if you do the math, it's not 14, it's closer to 16. Which, Stacks, that makes a difference when you're in there. Everything.
Yeah. 2 years? Shit, a month makes a difference. 1 month makes a difference.
You bet it does, brother. So he's in there for various securities violations that he was in business with Hunter Biden and Devin Archer for. Now, Devin Archer was convicted. The judge tried to overturn it, an Obama-appointed judge, and the appeals court whacked her down. Then she sentenced him to a year and a day. Now, Stacks, I don't know if you've ever been in the feds, but a year and a day in the feds, they do that so you can get the good time. If someone gives you a year, you do 365 days.
State time is the same way. If it's a year and a day, and then you're able to get certain things, like you get some kind of special type of parole in Connecticut if you have a year and a day.
Well, that makes sense. It works the same then, right? Yeah. And that's what they gave Hunter Biden's business partner. Now, Hunter, they left off the case completely. And my brother went out there and he whacked it up. He told him, here's the reality. Here's these meetings I was at, and Joe Biden came on the phone. I gave about 4 or 5 different incidences. Incidentally, Hunter Biden in the same, oversight committee said, I met Mr. Galanis talking about my brother for about 30 minutes 10 years ago. Well, that got blown out of the water. But, Stacks, we're going to see if anything's done about it now, right? Nobody, the Republicans aren't attacking my brother directly. They talk about his criminal record. He's got 4 or 5 felonies. It's out in the open now. But nobody attacks what he said. They don't discuss it at all.
Because they know he's telling the truth about Hunter, right?
You bet, brother. That's exactly why, man. And what's more mysterious, it's funny, a lot of these, true crime guys got on me about the mob association and whatnot. What's more important, if I was a low-level member of a mob or if my brother went before, Congress and testified about Hunter Biden? What's a bigger deal? And as far as that Gambino jacket they gave me, brother, like they put that on me. That's on my jacket. That's all over now. Everybody's seen it. I mean, they want to argue with it. That I don't make up the decision if I'm an associate. That's what the feds did. You guys got a beef with the feds. Talk to them.
Yeah. So what would you consider yourself, and what kind of association did you have with the mob and the Gambino family? It was the Cherry Hill Gambinos, right?
It was, but so I would say to you, Stacks, that it started with my father. His boardwalk marketplace scam in the 80s was about a $500 million scam he was doing in Atlantic City. And if you consider the time, you're paying somebody. If you're a racketeer, you're going to pay somebody. And he was paying the Philadelphia mob because at the time, Philadelphia had control of Atlantic City. A proximity thing, I'm
Nikki,
sure, right?
It was Nikki at the time.
Nikki and I think Angelo right before him. And my father had dealings with both of them. It was a smaller world back then. So he gets sent away for 27 years, RICO charged by Rudy Giuliani. And in Terminal Island, he meets Rosario Gambino. The Gambino kids, Tony and Tommy, were in LA. My brother Jason and I were in San Diego. And we effectively grew up together, man. Like our fathers coaching us on business, coaching us on scams. We had more than multiple meetings where we're all sitting next to our fathers, in the visiting room, discussing business and whatnot. One of those discussions was about buying the UFC, which, as you know, never happened.
Yeah,
but yeah, wow. Man, I was really tight with those guys, and there's nothing else I can say about it. That's where they got the association gig. I mean, I protected Tommy on my drug case that I finally caught with another inmate from Terminal Island. But look, everybody wants to distance themselves now, right? It's all self-interest. Everybody has a faulty memory in the long run.
Yeah. So what ended up happening with Tommy? He's around, right? Still?
He's never been convicted of a crime, brother, right? That drug case was the closest brush with the law he had. I protected him, and Tommy was always a really cautious guy. His father counseled him really well. My father obviously counseled me and my brother terribly, right? The effect you can see.
You're like the fall guy. Like we're gonna just keep them up to have them fall.
Well, how about I was the fall guy, but even my older brother, he's got 4 or 5 felonies now, and his prison time is closing in on mine. So the bottom line is, either way, my father was a bad father. Rosario coached Tommy well, and he made it very clear. He's, Tommy, why do you want to get into like the drug business or any business that extorts people when there's so much more money we can make, with fraud and things like that? And, Tommy's never, come back even close to the line after the drug case is my guess. It's in my book. My brother wore a wire on Gambino for about a year. And they were trying to sucker him into a pump and dump scam case. And they couldn't get him in the end because Gambino wanted my brother to put up the money for the shell. And my brother was willing to do it, but the Fed said, we can't do that, man. It'll just be entrapment. So, yeah, whatever. It is what it is.
Was your brother working with the law?
Yeah. So I had just gotten home from prison. It was 2008 or so.
How much time did you do when you got home? What was your sentence? How long did you do?
So my first case was that ecstasy case. I protected, Tommy, my brother Jason, my father on. They tried to give me 20 stacks. They got 11 out of me, 11 and a half actually, doing the month thing again.
It matters. That 6 months
yeah.
matters. I don't give a shit what anyone says.
Absolutely. They've never been there if they don't know how it matters. So I beat him down to 9 with an appeal. And so I'm home on 6.5 with drug program in the feds. So that first sentence I did 6.5 behind the wall was a 9-year sentence at the end of the day. So I get out, and it's maybe 2009, 10. I forget the timing. The IRS drops off a note at my brother's house. I guess they didn't want to rattle him. They didn't want to make a deal. Say, we'd really like to meet with you. My brother freaks out what's going on. And we didn't know yet. And the irony in this, Stacks, you're going to love. So they get him down to the office, and they start talking to him. Hey, we need help. You haven't paid your taxes since you've been born. And my brother was living in a mansion in Beverly Hills. And, they said, look, you're going to have to roll on some very famous people to help us out. And my brother and father are trying to brainstorm. And I had just gotten out of the Fed, Stack. So I said, guys, stop brainstorming. It's Tommy Gambino. And they're like, no, there could be 3 or 4 other people. I said, no, it's Gambino, guarantee you. Well, they went back the next day. It was Gambino. And the best part is how they got onto him. So my brother, jerk off that he is at one of those swanky hotels in LA drinking with Tommy Gambino, boss of the LA crime family. Well, the feds are taking pictures of him and following him, and they follow him home, and they follow him to the house, and they start looking him up, and they realize real quick, like, wait a minute, this guy having, drinks with the boss of LA, lives in this multi-million-dollar mansion, has never paid his taxes. We're going to flip him. So the reason my brother got in trouble in the first place was hanging around Tommy, So, and by the way, Stacks, for me too, the reason they wanted to give me 20 years and not 4 years is because of Tommy, right? They knew Tommy was involved, and that's how the feds carry it, man. They're always investigating those OC guys.
Did they want you to turn on Tommy?
Oh, you bet they did. That was the only thing they were interested in. My lawyer told me that day one. He wouldn't say the name. He just wrote it down. And I looked at him. I lied to my lawyer. I go, Tommy's a straight kid.
You don't know nothing.
That's right. Well, Stacks, remember, I was in my 20s. I was still scared at that time. You know what I mean? I'm thinking to myself, oh, my God, they're going to make me swim with the fishes real quick here. So admittedly, I was frightened. As you get older and you gain experience and you go through the life, what life has to offer, you realize, wait a minute, I do all these things for these people. They don't care. So you got to come out and tell your story. That's what I'm doing.
I mean, back then it was different. Like back in the 90s, the late night, it was different. People didn't want to talk. They were afraid. They would have never came on the internet and talked the way that we're all talking nowadays, because you'd be afraid that someone's going to come do something to you, right?
Yeah, no, Stacks. I mean, look, it wasn't that many years before that the LA crime family under Milano killed somebody in Vegas. You know what I mean? So that wouldn't have been a question. Now, it wasn't a transitionary time, right, where people are still scared, but maybe the threat's gone away. Probably a little of both, right? But you didn't know what to do. And I'll just tell you straight out, man, I was frightened.
I mean, they say that there's no violence in the mob these days, but I don't buy it. I think they will still kill you if you pose a major threat to them. They will take you out.
Oh, yeah, brother. I mean, listen, my personal opinion, Rosario's in Sicily. My personal opinion is Rosario probably told his son, hey, why are you be angry with the guy? He's trying to make, fire with 2 sticks after, he protected you and his family screwed him over. Leave the kid alone. That's my guess, because that would be the best counsel for anybody. So, I mean, the best thing they could do, Stack, is send some guys out here to beat me up, man. Blow up my account, 50,000 viewers.
Yeah, maybe you mop the floor with them on video, right?
Well, that's why people don't. That's why people talk over the internet, right? Face to face is a whole different story.
100%. So, how did Rosario or how did Tommy take over the crime family in LA?
Yeah, so. This happened all when we were friends with them, right? Because Tommy was a young in his 20s. Rosario very clearly had Tommy and Tony made under Pete Milano, who was boss of LA at the time. Now, people can laugh and say LA crime family, whatever they want. Obviously, the problem is there's not a diaspora of Italians in LA, right? So the power base, which is really civilians, not the soldiers, isn't there, one way or the other. So he had them made through Pete, and more than that, he brought them to the West Coast, because he knew, Bill, let's be honest, man, his kids growing up back east with, the level of his father was at in crime, Rosario, they'd have been dragged into something stupid. Some guy like Hootie Russo would have dragged him into a heist or heroin dealing or something. It would have been guaranteed.
Yeah.
So he moved them out west to get away from that, made them in a really small family, right, to keep them out of the business of New York. And meanwhile, Frank Cali married into the Inzerillos, which was a Sicilian faction related to Rosario and all of them. So really the Cherio Gambinos took over LA through Tommy, who took over the boss handle when Pete died of cancer in 12, and Frank Cali, who took over the Gambinos effectively. So, yeah, man, they're a powerful family that few people know about.
To what? When Pete died, Tommy just took over the family and everyone reported to him?
He did. Well, so, Bill, one of the things we talked about is, the LA crime family is very small. And you want it that way. In modern organized crime, a soldier's just a rat, man. That's all they're waiting to rat on you, right? Tommy is a one-man family out there, right? Maybe he's got a couple guys, he's got his brother, but he doesn't need anybody else. And he walks around LA, it's his city, and he says, I'm Tommy Gambino. And, all those starlets and all them, first of all, they all love him. All the guys out there want to be associated with him. So funding his wine business or anything else is no problem. And, he's living the life out there, the boss of LA, king of LA. Tell you a funny story. A lot of my haters on my account say, there's no LA crime family. There's no LA crime family. And I was on the prison bus from Brooklyn, MDC to, they were going to send us to Oklahoma, but there's a couple stop-offs. Philly was one of the stop-offs. But I was on with Charlie Stango. And Stango was part of that New Jersey family, the Cavalcantes. In fact, I think you read it at the end. And we got to talking about Joe Shammy and a bunch of other guys that we have in common from strip clubs and whatnot. And I told him, I grew up with Tommy, boss of LA. And Stango says to me, LA is an open city. Now, I want you to imagine this, man. Here's a member of the five families, a boss saying it's an open city. The Gambinos would have something to say about that. Tommy's running LA. So there it is.
Do you think there's other freelance mob guys out in LA that are doing whatever they want under the protection of Tommy, or are they doing it on their own?
So, any Italian that goes out there has got to pay their respects, right? I know there's a Colombo guy out there that was connected to Liz Hurley for a while. They took photos together in those magazines. I met that guy, by the way. Me and Tony Gambino had crashed into a Beamer, and we needed Tommy and what was that guy's name? Donnie. An old Colombo guy for the sit down for that. But yeah, they all come pay their respects to Tommy. It may not be the way it was in the old times, but Tommy's certainly the guy out there. But as far as organized crime goes, the Armenians are probably number one in LA right now. And by the way, it's just like the Italians. A lot of it's medical fraud, stuff like that now.
And like that, what about that $30 million heist that they just pulled off in LA over Easter weekend? That was huge.
Yeah, and people, it's funny you say that, man. Probably that was Armenians is my guess. People always bring stuff like that up, and they say, Derek, you see things haven't changed. But Stacks, here's the deal, man. Look, some people get more sophisticated. Some people grow and they go into things for more money, for less time in jail. And some people just don't have that. They didn't get the schooling. They didn't get educated by somebody. And guess what? They're going to go for what they know, right? And that's what those guys did. Those cash places in LA, man, they're sitting ducks, and there's a lot of them.
Yeah, they're just housing money.
Yeah.
So, eventually they're going to get caught. It's inevitable in today's day and age with all the cameras and the technology. There's, really no way to get away with it unless you have someone else do it, kill them all, take the money, right?
Yeah, brother. No, you're absolutely right. But here's the funny part. My father, for all his, I'm sophisticated. Really, there's no way to get away with his crimes either. He always gets caught too. You might escape one or two, but at the end of the day, you're gonna get got, right? And so, it's everybody's on when you're living that lifestyle. You have a time frame you can get away with it, and then it's going to be game over.
So, how hard is it to go from committing crimes all the time to living a legit life?
So let me say this. When I was in that life, I always had a pocket full of money, right? I never had a girlfriend. I did whatever I wanted. And I thought, I'm living the life. I'm the man. I can go wherever I want and do whatever I want. The reality is you're a prisoner to that life. Reality is you're also a prisoner to, guess what? You're either going to be dead or you're going to be in jail. Maybe not this year, maybe not next year, maybe not in 5 years, but you're going eventually. So, honestly, Stacks, I've never felt better in my life. Getting married was the best thing I ever did. It actually freed me. I never had an advocate in my family. That's why I was a fall guy. because nobody spoke up for me. Nobody cared. Derek was on his own. You know, he's tough. Let him do it. You know, they used me. So now, you know, I'm thrilled. You know, I've got someone who speaks for me that, you know, is my counselor instead of me always counseling my dad. He never listened to me anyway. So, man, for me, it wasn't hard. And I always tell people this. You know, they say, well, we have to work a job now. Let me tell you something. The life I had in crime was a lot harder than working any job. I guarantee you, man, it was rough.
Yeah, it's not a fun life. It definitely isn't. It gets stressful at times.
All the time. You know, like, Stacks, like, I can honestly tell you, like, what did I tell you about when the Gambinos came up? Was I stressed? I was stressed. I don't ever stress now, man. I got a couple of phone calls today, but that's just all par for the course for the game. Like, oh, yeah, okay, you guys are so tough, you're going to call me on the phone and make threats. Give me a break, man.
Block number, right? Yeah, fuck you, we're coming to get. Come on.
I mean, we're not in high school anymore, Stacks. You know,
they are. They probably are.
Yeah.
They're probably in high school, man. Right? I mean,
yeah.
It's crazy the way these people act on the internet. You know, it's wild.
It's weird, man. In society, we've gone to all these tough guys on the internet and complete pussies in person. So it's this bizarre switch in the world that, you know, I could have never imagined happening. But I guess people are getting all their, you know, their rocks off online, and then in person, they don't even know how to communicate with each other anymore, you know?
Yeah, it's insane. That's why I don't feed into the bullshit. If people can say whatever they want, but I'm not here to answer questions for anybody. I'm here to get stories out there, get interviews, and do my job. And
Stacks, that's what I told you, brother. Like, you gave me the best advice ever. Now I just can't follow it because I can't control myself, right? Yeah. Like, a million people can say, Derek, you're a stand-up guy. You're so tough. I love you. Like, thank you. So one person says, you did your out, and I spend the next week on that, man. So, you know, it's
human, right? I'm gonna find out who this guy is.
You bet.
So, do you got any crazy stories you could tell me when you were spending time with your brother or your father? Any crazy situations happen?